The city was buzzing like it always did, cars honking, people rushing, neon signs glowing even in the daylight. But for Amira Johnson, a 17-year-old black girl from the South Side, the world always seemed to move at a pace she wasn't invited to join. Her backpack was heavy with school books, her shoes scuffed, but her heart was bigger than the city itself. Every day, she passed by the row of benches outside the 8th Street bus station, where the homeless sat men and women people rarely looked at, as if they were invisible. But Amira noticed them. She always did. That afternoon, as she left the corner deli where her mom worked, she had 2 sandwiches in her bag, one for her and one extra she bought with the few dollars she had saved. On the far end of the bench sat a man she had never seen before. He was scruffy, with torn jeans, an old hoodie, and a beanie pulled low over his head. His face was partly hidden, his eyes tired. Unlike the others, though, something about him felt different. He didn't ask for money. He didn't even hold a sign. He just sat there, watching the world pass by. Amira hesitated, then walked over. "Hey, sir," she said softly, pulling the sandwich from her bag. "I don't have much, but you look hungry. Here." The man slowly looked up, and their eyes met. His gaze was sharp, intelligent, not dulled like the others. He studied her for a long moment, then finally spoke in a gravelly voice. "You're giving this to me?" Amira nodded. "Yeah, everybody deserves to eat." For a moment, silence hung between them. Then, unexpectedly, the man chuckled a deep, almost amused sound. He reached out, took the sandwich carefully, and whispered, "Thank you. You have no idea what this means." Amira smiled, waved, and walked off into the crowd, thinking nothing of it. She'd helped a stranger, like she always tried to do. What she didn't know, what nobody could have known, was that the man wasn't homeless at all. He was Alexander Drake, a billionaire CEO who had built an empire of hotels, airlines, and tech startups. That night, he wasn't dressed as himself. He was undercover, testing humanity. And the girl who handed him that sandwich just passed a test almost no one had ever passed before. The next morning, Amira's life would never be the same, because the police came knocking at her door. Morning sunlight filtered through the blinds of the small apartment Amira shared with her mother, Denise. The smell of coffee filled the air. Though it was weak, Denise always stretched the tin as far as possible. Amira had just sat down at the table with a notebook open, trying to finish her homework before school, when a loud, firm knock rattled their front door. Bam! 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 Denise froze, the mug halfway to her lips. Amira looked up wide-eyed. "Who's that?" she whispered. Denise's face tightened. Knocks like that rarely meant good news in their neighborhood. She set the cup down, wiped her hands nervously on her apron, and went to the door. "Who is it?" she called out, her voice steady but cautious. "Police," came the reply. Denise stiffened, her hand gripping the knob. She turned back to Amira, who looked just as frightened. "Stay put," she said firmly. Then she cracked the door open. 2 uniformed officers stood outside, tall, broad, their badges glinting. Behind them, a sleek black car idled at the curb, too expensive to belong on their street. "Ma'am," one officer said, "we're looking for Amira Johnson." Amira's heart dropped into her stomach. She stood slowly, her legs shaking. "I'm Amira," she stammered. The officer nodded, pulling something from his jacket. To her shock, it wasn't handcuffs or paperwork. It was an envelope, thick, official-looking. "This is for you," he said, "from Mr. Alexander Drake." Denise blinked. "Who?" The other officer leaned slightly forward, lowering his voice. "The billionaire." Amira froze, her mouth falling open. The man from the bench. She took the envelope with trembling hands. The weight of it felt heavier than paper. It felt like a door opening to something she wasn't prepared for. Denise stepped forward, frowning. "What's going on? Why is a billionaire sending the police to my home?" The first officer gave a practiced smile. "Mr. Drake has a message for your daughter. We were instructed to deliver it personally." Amira tore open the envelope, her hands shaking. Inside was a crisp white letter with a single handwritten line. "Meet me today at the Drake Tower, 12 sharp AD." Denise's voice was sharp with panic. "This must be some kind of mistake. My daughter doesn't know any billionaire." But Amira knew better. Her chest tightened as she whispered, almost to herself, "Yes, I do." Denise paced the living room, her slippers dragging against the thin carpet. "No, absolutely not. This is crazy. We're not going anywhere near some billionaire's tower. What if it's a trick? What if he's dangerous? Amira sat on the couch, the letter still in her hands, her eyes glued to the neat, elegant handwriting. Her heart thumped against her ribs. Mom, it's him. Denise shot her a look. Who? The man from the bus station, Amira said quietly. The one I gave the sandwich to yesterday. He wasn't really homeless. Denise blinked, stunned into silence. Wait, you're telling me the man you fed was a billionaire? Amira nodded slowly. I didn't know it was him at the time, but Mom, I swear, those eyes, I'd recognize them anywhere. Denise collapsed into a chair, rubbing her forehead. Lord have mercy. What does a man like that want with you? Amira's stomach twisted. I don't know, but doesn't it mean something that he sent the police just to deliver a letter? He could have ignored me. He could have done nothing, but he didn't. Her mother bit her lip, worry etched across her face. Life had taught Denise to be cautious. They didn't live in a world where billionaires came knocking for people like them. Still, Amira's voice carried something her mother hadn't heard in a while, which is hope. Mom, what if this is my chance? She whispered. What if something good can come out of this? What if this is bigger than us? Denise looked at her daughter. She saw the spark in her eyes, the same spark her late father once carried, a spark that refused to be crushed by hardship. Finally, Denise let out a long, shaky sigh. All right, but I'm going with you. No arguments. Amira's heart leapt. She hugged her mother tightly. Thank you, Mom. By noon, they stood in front of Drake Tower, a skyscraper of glass and steel that seemed to scrape the sky. Cars worth more than their apartment pulled up to the marble entrance. Men in suits and women in heels hurried inside, glancing at them with curiosity. Amira held the letter tightly in her hand, her palms sweating. She looked at the enormous golden doors, then back at her mother. Denise whispered, Baby, you ready for this? Amira swallowed hard, then nodded. I think so. And with that, they stepped inside the world of the billionaire. The lobby of Drake Tower was unlike anything Amira had ever seen. Marble floors gleamed like mirrors, a massive chandelier sparkled above, and a waterfall feature trickled softly against a wall of living green plants. Wealth didn't just exist here, it was carved into every corner. Denise clutched her daughter's arm as they stepped forward, eyes darting nervously at the uniformed guards. Amira, this place is... Before she could finish, a tall woman in a sleek black suit approached. Miss Johnson? She asked, her tone polite but firm. Amira nodded, her throat suddenly dry. Mr. Drake is expecting you. Please follow me. They were led past rows of busy assistants and sleek offices, into a private elevator that seemed to glide without a sound. Denise squeezed Amira's hand tightly. Stay close, she whispered. When the doors opened, they stepped into a sprawling penthouse office. The walls were glass, revealing the entire city skyline. At the far end of the room, a man stood with his back to them, gazing out the window. Even from behind, there was an aura about him, commanding, deliberate. Mr. Drake, the assistant announced. They're here. The man turned. It was the same face Amira had seen on the bench yesterday. Only now, clean-shaven, his jaw strong, his tailored suit sharp, and his eyes those same piercing eyes alive with intensity. Denise gasped under her breath. That's him? Alexander Drake stepped forward slowly, a faint smile on his lips. Miss Johnson, he said, his voice smooth but deep. And Mrs. Johnson, I presume. Denise instinctively moved in front of her daughter, protective. Why are we here? Why did you send the police to our door? Drake studied Amira, ignoring the question for a moment. His gaze softened slightly. You fed me. Amira blinked. What? Yesterday, Drake said. When I sat on that bench disguised, the entire city walked past me. Some sneered, some muttered insults. But not you. You saw me, and you gave me something no one else dared to be kind. Amira's cheeks flushed. It was just a sandwich. Drake's eyes sharpened. No, it wasn't just a sandwich. It was humanity. And in my world, humanity is the rarest currency of all. Denise narrowed her eyes. With all due respect, Mr. Drake, what does any of this have to do with my daughter? She's just a teenager. Drake's expression grew serious. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. Mrs. Johnson, your daughter has something this world desperately needs, and I intend to make sure she has the chance to use it. Amira's heart raced. She wasn't sure what he meant, but something in his tone told her life was about to change forever. When I see something or someone with value, I act. Your daughter gave me what my board of directors, my investors, and even some of my so-called friends have never given me. honesty, selflessness, and compassion. He stepped behind his massive oak desk, pressed a button, and a digital screen lit up across the glass wall. Numbers, charts, images of corporations and charities filled the display. "I own empires," Drake said. "Hotels in 50 countries, airlines, technology firms, philanthropy foundations with billions in funding. But none of it," he paused, locking eyes with Amira. "None of it matters if I forget the people I'm meant to serve." Amira swallowed hard, her small hands gripping the letter. "That's why," Drake continued, "I want you, Amira, to work with me." Denise nearly choked. "Work with you? She's a child." Amira's mouth fell open. "Me? But I'm just a high school student." Drake's expression softened. "Not in my eyes. In my eyes, you're the only one who passed the test yesterday. You didn't see a billionaire. You didn't see the title. You saw a human being. That's exactly the kind of vision I need in my foundation. And that's why I'm offering you a scholarship and a place on my youth advisory board." Amira gasped. "Scholarship? For college?" "Yes," Drake said firmly. "Full tuition, any university, anywhere, paid in full. In exchange, I want you to help me rebuild my charity programs, to remind my empire what humanity looks like." For a moment, the room was frozen. Denise's eyes widened, torn between disbelief and suspicion. "Why my daughter? Why not some polished kid from an Ivy League prep school?" Drake leaned forward, his voice low, raw. "Because those kids already think they belong at my table. Your daughter is the only one who proved she deserves it." Amira's heart pounded so hard she thought it might break through her chest. This wasn't just an offer. It was a door opening to a world she had never even dared to imagine. Denise's hands trembled as she pulled Amira slightly behind her, like a lioness shielding her cub. "Mr. Drake," she said firmly, "this all sounds real pretty. Scholarships, boards, charity talk, but I wasn't born yesterday. Rich men don't just hand out golden tickets to poor black girls from the South Side. So tell me straight, what's the catch?" Drake tilted his head. For the first time, his polished confidence cracked just enough to reveal something else underneath wariness. "There is no catch," he said quietly. "I've lived long enough to know money can buy almost anything, except decency. And yesterday, your daughter gave me a glimpse of it." Denise's eyes narrowed. "And you expect me to just believe that?" "No," Drake admitted. "I expect you to doubt me. That's what any good mother would do. But you'll also see I don't make promises I can't keep." He pressed another button, and the giant screen filled with documents. Contracts, scholarship certificates already drafted, donation letters prepared in Amira's name. It was overwhelming, like watching someone wave the key to a locked future. Amira's lips parted in awe. "Mom, this is real." Denise's chest tightened. She looked at her daughter's hopeful face, then at the billionaire whose name was plastered across billboards and magazines. She thought of the rent notices on their door, the half-empty fridge, the nights she cried herself to sleep wondering how to give her daughter a future. And yet, fear gnawed at her. "People like us," she whispered. "We don't step into worlds like this. Every time we try, the door slams shut. And sometimes it slams harder than before." Drake stepped closer, his voice softer than it had been all day. "Mrs. Johnson, I didn't bring you here to slam a door. I brought you here to open one, permanently." Amira tugged on her mother's sleeve, her voice pleading. "Mom, please. This is my chance. You always told me to use my heart and my mind to help people. Maybe this is how I do it." Denise looked at her daughter's eyes with the same spark that reminded her of Amira's father, gone too soon. Her throat tightened. "And what if it breaks you, Amira? What if his world chews you up and spits you out?" Amira took a deep breath, surprising even herself with her courage. "Then at least I'll know I tried. Isn't that better than never trying at all?" Silence filled the room. The weight of the decision pressed down on them like the skyscraper itself. Finally, Denise exhaled, a tear slipping down her cheek. She turned to Drake with steel in her voice. "If she says yes, I'll be watching you. Every step. One wrong move, and I'll tear down your empire with my bare hands." Drake didn't flinch. In fact, a faint smile tugged at his lips. "Fair enough." Amira's chest rose and fell quickly. She looked at her mother, then at the billionaire, then down at the letter still in her hand. This wasn't just about a sandwich anymore. It was about everything that could come after. "I accept," she whispered, and with those words, her life began to change forever. The assistant led Amira and Drake into a wide conference room. Its glass walls looked out over the city, and inside, a polished mahogany table stretched the length of the room. Around it sat board members, executives, and investors, all murmuring in low, serious tones. When Amira stepped in, the room grew silent. One of the executives, a man with silver hair and sharp eyes, frowned. "With all due respect, Mr. Drake, why is there a child in this meeting?" Another woman, in a blazer that probably cost more than Amira's rent for a year, added with a clipped voice, "This is highly irregular. We're discussing sensitive company matters." Amira wanted to shrink into her chair. She wasn't supposed to be here. Maybe her mom was right, maybe she didn't belong. But Drake didn't waver. He pulled out a chair and motioned for Amira to sit. "She belongs here more than most of you, and she's going to stay." The executives exchanged skeptical looks. As the meeting began, Amira stayed quiet, listening. Words like shareholder equity, mergers, sustainability indexes flew over her head. She tapped her pen nervously against her notebook, trying not to look lost. Then came the moment. An executive clicked a remote, and a chart appeared on the screen. "Public trust is slipping," he said. "Our image problem worsened after last quarter's layoffs. The public sees us as heartless. We need a fix." Voices buzzed around the table. Ideas of PR campaigns and celebrity endorsements swirled. Drake, however, turned toward Amira. "What do you think?" The room fell dead silent. Amira froze. "Me?" "Yes, you," Drake said. His tone was calm, but there was something challenging in his gaze. He wasn't setting her up to fail. He was testing her. Amira swallowed hard. Her palms were damp. Everyone's eyes were on her, their doubt, their judgment. Finally, she spoke. "You can buy ads, you can put a celebrity on a billboard, but that won't change how people feel. If you want trust, you need to do something real, something that actually helps people." The room went still. One of the executives scoffed. "And what would a—" He caught himself, hesitating before finishing. "Young girl know about corporate reputation." Amira's voice steadied. "I know what it feels like to be invisible, to feel like people like you don't care. If this company showed people they matter, not just profits, you wouldn't need ads. People would see for themselves." For a long moment, no one spoke. Then slowly, Drake smiled. He leaned back in his chair, folding his arms. "Exactly." The executive shifted uncomfortably. Some avoided her eyes, but Drake's voice carried finality. "From today forward," he said firmly, "we're not just running a business. We're going to change how we treat the world, and it starts here." Amira's heart pounded. She hadn't planned those words. They just spilled out from a place deep inside her. And for the first time in her life, people in power had actually listened. She didn't know it yet, but that single moment would set in motion a chain of events that would turn both her life and Drake's empire completely upside down. The boardroom adjourned with forced smiles and stiff handshakes. But as soon as Amira and Drake stepped out, the whispers began. "Ridiculous. She embarrassed us. This is madness, letting a waitress's kid dictate strategy." Amira caught fragments of their murmurs as they walked down the polished hallway. Her chest tightened. She wasn't stupid, she knew they didn't respect her. In the elevator, she finally asked, "Did I make things worse?" Drake shook his head. His expression was unreadable. "You told the truth. That's rare in this building, but truth always makes enemies." Still, doubt gnawed at her. She'd stood up in a room full of powerful people, and all she'd managed was to make them angry. That evening, when Drake's driver dropped her back in her neighborhood, she found her mom waiting on the steps. A police cruiser sat across the street, lights off, engine idling. Amira froze. Her mom's arms were folded tight. "What did you get yourself into, Amira? Why are there police outside our building?" Amira blinked, heart racing. "I don't know." But she did know. Ever since that morning when police had shown up at the diner after she helped the disguised homeless man, something bigger had been watching her. And now, the attention was growing darker. The next day at school, Amira opened her locker to find a folded piece of paper stuffed inside. She smoothed it open. Stay away from him. No name, no signature, just blocky, threatening letters. Her stomach dropped. She shoved the note deep into her bag, but the unease clung to her. Later that evening, Drake called her to his office again. She walked in and found him pacing, phone in hand. He looked more rattled than she'd ever seen. "What's wrong?" she asked. He held up the phone. On the screen was a news article, the headline screaming, Billionaire heir seen with teen waitress, company in crisis. Amira's knees went weak. Her picture, grainy but unmistakably hers, was plastered on the front page of a gossip site. "They're twisting this," Drake muttered, throwing the phone onto the desk. "They're painting you as some kind of scandal. They want to discredit you, make you disappear from the conversation." Amira swallowed hard. "But why me? I'm nobody." Drake stopped pacing. His eyes were dark. "That's exactly why. You're a reminder that this company can't ignore people like you anymore. And they don't like it." That night, Amira lay awake in bed, staring at the cracked ceiling. Her phone buzzed nonstop with notifications, some messages of support, others cruel, filled with words that stung more than she wanted to admit. She wanted to disappear, to go back to being invisible, unnoticed. It was safer that way. But she remembered the look in Drake's eyes when she spoke in the boardroom. She remembered the weight of the sandwich in her hands the night she gave it to the homeless man. Her life wasn't safe anymore. It wasn't normal, but maybe it wasn't meant to be. She sat up, heart pounding, and whispered into the silence of her room, "If they want me to stay quiet, then I'll speak louder." She didn't know it yet, but her decision that night to keep standing beside Drake would ignite a storm that neither of them could control. The smear campaign only got worse. Amira's picture was everywhere in blogs, gossip sites, even TV talk shows. They painted her as a gold digger, a fraud, someone using the billionaire's kindness. At school, classmates whispered when she walked by. Teachers avoided eye contact. Even her mother begged her, "Amira, just stop going with him. These people are dangerous." But Amira refused. "If I walk away now, it means they win." Then came the press conference. Drake's company had scheduled it to calm investors. Hundreds of journalists crowded the ballroom, cameras flashing. Drake stood tall at the podium, but Amira could feel the tension in the air like a storm about to break. One reporter's voice cut above the rest. "Mr. Drake, who is this black girl? Why is she always by your side?" Another shouted, "Is this some kind of publicity stunt?" Drake looked at Amira. For a moment she thought he'd shield her, push her behind the curtain. Instead, he stepped aside. "Why don't you ask her yourself?" The room gasped. Amira froze. The microphone suddenly felt heavy in her hand. 100 cameras pointed at her. She could hear her heartbeat in her ears. She took a shaky breath. "I'm Amira. I work at a diner. I'm not rich. I'm not powerful. I gave a man a sandwich one night because he looked hungry. That's all." She paused, finding her voice. "I didn't know he was a billionaire. But maybe that's the point. I wasn't helping a billionaire. I was helping a human being. And if that makes me a scandal," she lifted her chin, "then maybe the world needs more scandals like that." The room went silent, then applause. Not from the journalists, not yet. From the back, where staff and ordinary workers had gathered, their clapping spread until even the reporters joined in reluctantly. For the first time, the narrative shifted. In the weeks that followed, something remarkable happened. Instead of Amira disappearing under the weight of the attacks, she became a symbol. News outlets started calling her the black girl with the sandwich. Drake, inspired by her courage, announced a new foundation, the Amira Initiative, dedicated to feeding the homeless and helping kids from underprivileged neighborhoods get access to education and mentorship. The same executives who once sneered at her were now forced to stand beside her as cameras captured ribbon cuttings, food drives, and scholarship announcements. But for Amira, it wasn't about cameras. It was about the little black girl at the shelter who tugged her sleeve and whispered, "Thank you for noticing me." It was about the homeless man who cried when he was handed his first hot meal in weeks. Drake's empire was changing, and so was Amira's life. Months later, Amira sat at the diner where it all began, with a plate of fries in front of her. The bell above the door jingled, and Drake walked in, no disguise this time. No rags, just himself. He sat across from her, smiling. "Do you ever think about that night?" Amira nodded, laughing softly. "Every day. If I'd kept that sandwich for myself, none of this would have happened." Drake leaned forward. "Funny, isn't it? You thought you were giving away food, but really, you were giving away hope." Amira's eyes stung with tears. She realized then that her one small act had not just changed his life, it had changed hers, her mother's, and countless others. Because sometimes the smallest kindness carries the greatest power. A simple sandwich given in kindness lit a spark that transformed lives, toppled walls, and built bridges. This story reminds us that greatness isn't always found in wealth, titles, or power, but in the courage to care when no one else will. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to subscribe to Colorless Voices for more stories that prove even the smallest act of humanity can change the world forever.